Welcome back, everybody, to the Below Average Joe's MMA podcast, episode number 109. It's Wednesday. We're midway through the week, June 16th, 2021. And Dominic, your lighting is looking a bit like The Undertaker over there. You got the purple ambiance, a little darker over in your area. How's it going, my friend?
It's only right that we talk about The Undertaker, considering we're going to talk about some WWE stuff in this episode.
That's true.
You know, I'm messing around with the studio. I was walking around at a store today. My sister, shout out Peyton, she sees this little light at Walmart, and she goes, Bubby, you should put that in your background of your podcast and put the name of the show on it, like a marquee sign. I'm like, you're a genius. But turns out when I open the box, I only get 2 of each letter. And if you look at our podcast name, I need 4 E's, so I couldn't do it.
So I had to do vowels will get you every time.
It's always the vowels. So I went with a little creativity and just put the episode number. So nice. I'll play around with this. You guys will see it look different in the background every now and again. But, yeah, you know. How about you, Noah? How are you?
I, for one, am very happy with this change because I always have to ask Dom before every episode what episode we're on, and now I don't have to because it's just going to be right there.
Yeah,
it's like a little cheat sheet. So yes. I, for one, am happy about it. No, I'm doing good, man. Again, same old going on over on my end of things. Just I'm happy to be back here to do one of my favorite segments.
Yeah, your baby.
MMA Reddit Roundtable. As the name suggests, we have scoured the burrows of Reddit, YouTube, Twitter to find basically what questions are MMA fans kind of throwing around over. Really, it's been the last couple weeks, but mostly trying to keep it as close to the last week as possible.
Yeah, what's topical out there?
Yeah, you know, and you're going to see, this is the third time we're doing this, some of our questions here, we have 12 in total. That's what we like to keep it, a nice dozen. But some of them are going to be very topical with kind of fights that just took place or are coming up. And then we have some that are more fun, more out there, maybe, you know, not necessarily involving what's going on right now, but just stuff that we want to talk about. So that's what I love about doing these is that you can kind of just
chit chat.
Just talk about whatever we want to talk about as long as someone on some Reddit thread or on some Twitter post.
Some sort of social media platform.
And they never thought it would ever be seen by more than their 50 followers or whatever. But guess what? The Joe saw it.
Yeah, the Joes.
That's why we're your friend.
Exactly.
But I think we're just going to go ahead and hop right in.
Give it to me right now. Come on. Yeah. Number 1.
Number 1. And this one is going to be one of those that's a little bit different.
It's fun.
And this, you know, for you guys, hopefully you'll enjoy this one in particular because maybe it lets you know a little bit more about us. And that's because the question proposed, and I don't have the names for the people proposing these this time. I figured I'd just save that for when people send them directly to me. So I don't have to say Captain Cumsock every week and stuff like that.
Yes.
So number 1.
It was legendary while it lasted.
Yeah. Nice run he had. But number 1, what are your favorite athletes of all time in the following sports? MMA, Major League Baseball, American football, basketball, and I threw a fun one in there because I've been talking about it the last couple of weeks, WWE.
Had to.
And I figure we'll just give one for each. It can be when it's all time, you know, it's not just about the modern day. It's also about who we grew up with. That a lot. I don't know if that's how it feels for you. For me, who I was big on as a kid is big for like kind of who I look back on the most fondly.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's start with MMA. Who's your favorite MMA fighter of all time? I mean, I know who it is. I'm just setting it up.
Come on. He's just not on the wall back here. That's all.
Yeah.
Anderson the Spider Silva, man. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be sitting here doing this podcast today. The things he did, the records, the accolades, the title defenses, the way he fought everyone was just so incredible to me as a little kid during his prime. We've never seen anything like it. I don't know if we'll ever see anything like it again. 16 straight victories, countless memories, countless UFC pay-per-view headliners. It's just, I could go on and on all day. But again, Anderson the Spider Silva, I'm not sitting right here. every week with you talking about MMA if it wasn't for that man.
It's a good point. For me, I don't know if I've ever really actually answered this. I don't know if I've had to. I've had a few options. Like I always throw out like 3 or 4, but truthfully, my favorite MMA fighter of all time is going to be Ruthless Robbie Lawler. To me, it's all about what does the guy do when he gets in the octagon, win, lose, or draw, and Robbie Lawler is the reason for that.
Puts on a show.
Because he didn't always win, and even to this day, he's not always winning. But he constantly comes in to knock your head off, put on a good performance, and the intensity the guy shows, the heart he shows, and when he won the belt over Johnny Hendricks, and then that back-to-back fight of the years he had with Rory McDonald and then Carlos Condit. Regardless, a lot of people think he lost that fight with Carlos Condit. That's completely fair. Very close fight. Doesn't matter. The guy brought it, and then obviously he's not the same fighter anymore. But to see that, like at one point in his UFC career, he was looked at as a bit of a failure. He was a hot prospect early on. Kind of got starched by a couple guys, including Nick Diaz. Funny enough, then he kind of leaves or gets cut, moves over to places like Strikeforce. Had kind of a middling run.
Yeah, I was going to say, he didn't even do great over there either.
Pretty sure in Strikeforce he had a below 500 record. He was fighting a middleweight, I believe. Yeah. Before that, he fought for no, I'm not going to be able to – one of those promotions that was pretty big at the time. I want to say it was the one Kimbo got knocked out in. I can't remember.
Yeah, I forget the organization.
I'm just blanking on it. But I'm pretty sure he was their champion. So he had some success and some failure when he was away from the UFC. When Strikeforce gets bought out, nobody thought Robbie Lawler was going to be much of anything, considering at the time he was on a run of like four out of his last 10 or something like that. And then he goes on to win the belt. Loses the first attempt with Johnny Hendricks and then rematches him and gets it, and then has an amazing run, but short but awesome run. And then, even after he lost the belt, he was still for a while there, had some moments. Ben Askren fight, man. That's one of the biggest reasons
that was crazy.
He lost the fight, but just to see him
dumped him on his head.
Just crazy. Taking it to a guy, I like Ben Askren, don't get me wrong, but a guy who was, who definitely was talking the talk before his debut, for Robbie Lawler just to punch him in the mouth and slam him on his head. It kind of, at the time, it was just like, this is what I've been waiting for.
The story of Robbie Lawler is quite crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be a sad day for me when he hangs him up, if he hasn't already, to be honest.
Right.
So, Major League Baseball.
Okay.
What would be one? Who would it be for you? Because let's be honest, we're both from the same area, so I believe we're both Reds fans, right?
Yeah, Reds all day for sure. Mm-hmm.
Now, is your favorite player gonna be a Reds player of all time?
Former Reds player, the kid, Ken Griffey Jr., man, the absolute legend. Was actually neighbors with my great aunt back in the day when he was a little kid. So a little funny story there, down in Hamilton, Ohio. What a legend. The swing on that guy, to this day, the most pure, beautiful swing in the history. Chef's kiss. Oh, man. I only played baseball until I was 10, but you best believe I was trying to replicate it as much as I could. Yeah. Just what a legend. The 600 home run club, always smiling. The charm, has done so much for the sport. A great ambassador. Ken Griffey Jr. all day for me, man. That's the sport I follow the least out of these, but everybody knows the kid, Ken Griffey.
Yeah, he was very close to being my pick, too. That's what's funny. And what's funny is, even more so than that, is his run with our favorite team, the Reds, is not the
not
best.
His best years, yeah.
I mean, plagued with injuries, unfortunately, but obviously he was still a star in the city. Yeah. It was just nice to have a player like him around. But unfortunately he dropped off dramatically from when he was with the Mariners, and that's where he built up that reputation that we talked about. Even backyard baseball, I remember he was with the Reds on there, and backwards hat going on and stuff. It very much like how I imagined his personality was like back then. For me, I'm going to go with someone who played with Ken Griffey Jr. on those Mariner teams. However, I most remember him just because when I was first getting into baseball in the early 2000s, he was an Arizona Diamondback. That's going to be the big hurt, Randy Johnson.
Ooh, okay.
Because he was the guy I was most scared of growing up in baseball.
He would bring the heat.
6'10", left-handed pitcher. The dude looked like Dale Earnhardt, had the thick mustache, the long hair. He looked like someone that'd be in my family, truth be told. And he scared the shit out of me, man. I remember I went to the Louisville Slugger Museum in Kentucky, where they make the bats for a lot of these players. And I was really young, so I don't remember too much about this, but they just showed us the whole process of making one of these bats and stuff like that. Well, they had some more fun stuff, and one of those was it was like a batter's box where you could stand on the outside of it, and you would press a button, and next to there was like 4 or 5 buttons, and there were different pitchers.
Yeah,
and it was like you press it, and it would show how fast those pitchers threw. So I clicked Randy Johnson, and it came straight like towards, because where I'm standing at, it just came straight towards my head. Obviously, I'm outside of this cage, and I just like kind of started shaking, and I was like, man. So I just that guy. I mean, he fucking hit a bird in mid-flight with a fastball.
That thing exploded.
He was once quoted as saying, "I don't sleep with a gun. I sleep with a bucket of baseballs." And you know what? I believe it.
Come on now. That dude was hitting triple digits before it was popular. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was a legend, man. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah, so that's definitely my guy there. We'll transition to the NFL, American football. This is the one I struggled with the most, if I'm being honest.
I had to do some thinking here as we were going over the topics.
See, you're in a unique spot compared to me with football, because I don't want to say I've always been like a diehard Bengals fan. I mean, I'll get into this when I get into my pick, but I've struggled to kind of find my team over the years. And I ended up just going with the hometown team for me. Right. You've never really had you've more just enjoyed players.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fantasy football guru, and that's really the biggest reason. But even as a young kid, that's kind of where it's going to come in to who my favorite is. As a young kid, I did follow one team more than others, but I wasn't like a huge fan or anything. It was because of this person, Peyton Manning, baby. He's my all-time GOAT quarterback. I love everything about the guy, the comedy, an ambassador for the sport, similar to how I mentioned in Ken Griffey Jr. It was just so amazing watching him play every Sunday. He could read defenses with ease. He never had the greatest talent, but did have some good receivers over the years with Indy and in Denver. Got 2 Super Bowl rings, and man, I just loved watching him play. Even his little skits on Saturday Night Live made it even better. That's what I was
going to say. That's like one of the best skits ever on that show.
Oh, when they're doing the Play 60 and he's doinking these kids in the head with footballs.
Yes, exactly.
It cracks me up to this day, man. I really had to sit on it and think, but Peyton Manning really pulled me into when I started playing fantasy and stuff. So even then, it's always been Peyton Manning for me.
So this one's going to be easy because that's also my pick.
There you go.
Manning. And I was going to say, there was a time where I would have called myself a Indianapolis Colts fan because I was just so I just didn't even care about the Bengals at the time. And I mean, why? Hey, as a fan of them now, why should you? And but Peyton Manning, when he was leading these Colts teams that had Reggie Wayne and Dallas Clark and Marvin Harrison for a time, and
oh man,
even guys that weren't as good. But I still remember Pierre Garçon and
made
Austin
him look
Collie.
good.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Adai was on these teams. I mean, guys that really once they were outside of that Peyton Manning system, they weren't as good.
That's a great way to put it.
But Peyton Manning was the guy. It took me such a long time to get off of his defender hill of him versus Brady,
Right. Yeah, it's hard to really do it
finally
today.
Exceeded that argument after a few more Super Bowls, but it took a lot out of me. But, yeah, Peyton Manning he made the game so fun to watch. I watched every Colts game from, 2006 to about, 2010 or something like that for about 5 years, man.
In his prime.
It was just, their defenses were never that great, but their offense was just so high-powered. And
the yardage numbers, the touchdowns. Yeah. Oh, yeah, man. Legend. Yeah.
Next up, NBA basketball. This one you were a big basketball fan growing up.
Yeah, I love basketball. Still do. Obviously, I don't follow it as closely because I'm on this MMA grind all the time. But
I know who your pick's gonna be. But
hey, man, Blake Griffin, baby, I love that guy. He's still my favorite player in the league, even though he's not with the Clippers anymore. He's just went through so much too recently with the injuries and stuff. Now he's back on the Nets, and they look like a freaking juggernaut. Therefore, the series is tied up 2-2. I shouldn't say juggernaut, but you get what I'm saying. But, man, Blake Griffin, showtime at the Staples Center, the LA Clippers, Lob City. There was nothing like it. Even him, I remember following him in Oklahoma, and that's why I became a Clippers fan. I followed him through college, and he would win the dunk contest there. He hit his head on the backboard in one of the games he played with Oklahoma. The last college basketball game that I owned, and I think that they even made, he was on the cover of it. Yep. I mean, Blake Griffin is the man, one of the most athletic freak of natures we've ever seen in the NBA. The dunks we've seen in game, some of the best we've ever seen. And now he puts it all together. He dribbles, he shoots threes. He's just such a freak, one-of-a-kind athlete. I love Blake Griffin so much, man. Yeah,
you're probably the only guy I know in the state of Ohio who is a Los Angeles Clippers fan, too.
Yes. I had to let him know it didn't just happen when Kawhi and Paul George came over. It's been a long grind for me. Noah can attest to this.
Yeah. I remember, that it's just so interesting to hear you tell it. But, Blake Griffin, that guy, people watching today might not see it. You see the flashes, but at one time, guy was one of the most electric players in the entire league.
Lob City was special.
Lob City was a lot of fun. For me, it's going to be a player that's a little less he's less flashy in the scoring department, not much of a dunker, but flashy in the passing department. That's going to be Rajon Rondo.
Oh, I remember you were a huge Celtics fan, man. I forgot about that.
This is, again, growing up, I consider myself a Cleveland Cavaliers fan.
Yeah.
That's more by default because we don't have a Cincinnati basketball team. If we did, I'd root for them. So Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron is kind of too easy of a pick.
Right.
So yes, at one point in time, I was a huge Celtics fan, and that's a team full of stars, right? You had Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen. But then there was this guy from Kentucky, Rajon Rondo.
Yeah.
Who by really the end of the 2000s was in complete control of that offense. And he was the glue that held that team together. When you have all this star power in Paul Pierce, KG, Ray Allen, and he was the guy that made it work.
Yeah.
He was the one that ran the offense, who found the open lanes, had some very slick passes that I always was a fan of, just the behind the backs and stuff like that. Rajon Rondo, that was a big one for me.
And still a good role player to this day, because we're talking, 12 years ago when that was going on, and still putting up some good assist numbers and such. He's lasted a while, man.
He really has. There was a time when he kind of first left the Celtics and it didn't look great for him. He got traded to Dallas and had a falling out immediately with Rick Carlisle and team there, and it just looked like he was never going to be able to kind of. A lot of people had, including myself, we all had high expectations for Rajon kind of once the band got broken up in Boston.
When he would be his own.
Yeah, it would be his team, right?
Yeah.
And you just found out that, that's really not the kind of player he is. He's not going to be the 20 to 25-point scorer a game. He'll give you 15 on a good night, but he'll give you 15 assists on a good night, too.
Exactly.
So, it's he needs, good scorers around him to really make his kind of skill set work. And a lot of teams have done a great job of kind of extending the shelf life for him. He won a chip with the Lakers in the bubble.
Yeah.
And everybody, now that he has a reputation for it, but I remember when it hit playoff time, this guy just stepped his game up. And now he has that reputation for doing that in the playoffs. So I'm glad to see him kind of getting his due. I believe he's with Atlanta right now, I believe, because he was with the Clippers to start the year.
Yeah,
I believe they trade him to Atlanta, so I believe he's still going right now. And Atlanta's still alive, aren't they?
Yeah,
how little I've been paying attention to basketball right now.
Yeah.
But last one here, WWE. I've talked about it a couple times on the podcast last couple weeks. This is a tough one for me because there's the one that is probably true, like, because a lot of this is going to be based off of when we were kids,
Right.
you know. And there is one name that's like sticking out as like he was the guy for me as a kid. But it's such an obvious one that a lot of kids have, but it's Jeff Hardy. I mean,
Same. I thought we had the same one.
Yeah, it's Jeff Hardy. But I'm gonna cheat and give a few more just so I can,
honorable mention.
Yeah, honorable mentions to Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, good.
The Big Red Machine Kane. And the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle.
I broke my freaking neck.
Those were the 4 guys for me when I watched growing up. Maybe even Shawn Michaels might be thrown in there too.
Yeah.
Those were the guys, but Jeff Hardy was a level above. Like
Jeff Hardy, you talk about a guy that just comes in and wants to put on a show for fans, night in and night out. That man put it all on the line. Yes, we know the WWE staged. We get it. We're 23. We understand. But you still got to put your body through this, and the athleticism that these guys do and just the beatings that they take. He was jumping off 20-foot ladders, getting speared by Edge in midair, doing flips and going through tables. I mean, my God. The Hardy Brothers rivalry with Christian and Edge and the Dudley Boys, dude. That's like one of my all-time favorite tag team era.
All 3 of those ladder matches they had, the 2 at WrestleMania and the 1 at SummerSlam in 2000.
Unreal, man.
I've been watching that time period lately, and I'm getting really close to WrestleMania, and I just know I'm like, there's that ladder match coming up.
Well, and here's the funny story for me. I'm 23, but I'm not ashamed to say this. I love Jeff Hardy so much. I call my grandpa to this day Jeff as like a nickname.
Yeah.
It's his name in my phone is Jeff.
Yes.
Because back in the day when I would watch it with him and play with the action figures, he would call me Matt, which he hated because my name is Dominic. But I would always call him Jeff, and the Matt part hasn't stuck, but the Jeff part that I call him has stuck all the way to now. I mean, it's just I think it's weird when I call him Grandpa. That's how much it's stuck these days.
It took some adjustment when I started living with you to get used to that. That was an interesting one. I was like, why'd you call him Jeff?
Yeah, man. Jeff Hardy is the guy for me.
Yeah.
All-time favorite.
Agreed. Well, that's going to wrap up number 1 here.
That was long-winded.
Yeah, that was fun, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm multi-parts. They can stick with us.
But we are going to transition to one that's the background here is still WWE related. So just showing what's been on my brain lately. So there is, I don't know if you're aware of this, Don, but there is a podcast out on the interwebs called OSW Review, and that stands for Old School Wrestling.
Love it.
And podcast. And what they do is they do commentary over a lot of older, one of their big thing was they covered like Hulkamania, like during those late 80s, early 90s, that was a big thing on their website.
Yeah.
So they have this thing on that they do on their episodes where they have this boy stable. Like these are guys that they call their boys.
Okay.
But they're guys who never made it to the top. They never were world champ. They never really competed for world championships, but they are still some of their favorite guys and have been for a long time just for whatever reason, even though they were never more than a mid-carder, maybe. So I'm going to ask you, who would you put in your MMA boy stable? Because the answer is easy for me. I got 3, and that's Alan Joban. I've talked about all 3 of these guys.
Right.
Drew Dober and Brandon Royval. And I don't think I need to explain any of those. All 3 based on fun fight styles, good personalities. I mean, Drew Dober just had a freaking war with Brad Riddell where he lost.
Right.
So it just shows again he adds to his mythicism as a boy of my stable. So who is in your MMA boy stable?
It's kind of tough, and I'm still even struggling here. I do love Raw Dog. He's still so new into the UFC. Screw it. I'll go with Raw Dog as one of them just because we love Raw Dog. We've been with him since the beginning. I'll go Brandon Royval.
Mm-hmm.
You know who's kind of a low-key sleeper for me that was like kind of a big name, big star? Chris Lieben. Never really had that title fight. Nothing huge that came from him.
I love that pick.
Yeah, man. But the tough one, superstar, was always in fun fights, putting it all on the line.
Mm-hmm.
But never – I mean, for God's sake, he welcomed Anderson Silva into the UFC.
Yes,
I mean,
he did.
The poor guy. So I'll go Chris Lieben, Brandon Royval, and one that's recently just fought one of the best fighters in UFC to never get a title fight or win a title. I'll go Jacare Souza. I know he's not like the flashiest of guys, but a BJJ black belt that always went in and tried to finish people. Even got some good knockouts over guys like Chris Weidman. And was so good in Strikeforce, was still great in the UFC, but never, like he would crack that top 5, but couldn't get the title fight, couldn't get the title win. I'll go Jacare Souza as number 3.
That was an interesting last one. I like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't expecting that one.
Not one of my like favorite fighters ever, but a guy that really you felt deserved it, but never got it.
Yeah. He should have gotten a title fight during Michael Bisping had the title and kind of held up the division.
Yeah.
No, don't disrespect Mike. Don't take that the wrong way. But the division being kind of held up for a long time. That was his time to get a title shot. Him and like Gegard Mousasi, stuff like that. So
but Raw Dog, work your way up there, baby.
Yeah, we might have to remove him from the boys if he gets a title fight here like we expect him to get. So number 3.
Ooh,
I like this. Strictly MMA here. Which currently ranked middleweight has the best chance of beating Israel Adesanya moving forward, excluding Mr. Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whittaker, because it's not very fair. So this is going to make us have to think outside the box here as far as which of these guys kind of in this group.
The damn guy's beaten so many of them already. It's so hard.
So what's funny is I've said my answer, and it's not a popular one for this question. It's still Marvin Vettori. Okay. He just got 50-45.
Yeah.
On all 3 judges' scorecards.
That speaks to how good Izzy is. Huh?
To me, it's about the style, and Vettori's striking is probably the biggest holdback. The biggest thing holding him back from really being able to beat Adesanya. He's a little too slow and plodding of a puncher and striker in general to really give Adesanya, who's so quick and has great head movement, any problems. But the wrestling capabilities, he's a big guy. It obviously didn't work in the fight, but I still stand by it. I just don't see a lot of these guys in this batch of contenders who gives him much of a problem.
I guess I'll go with maybe the other obvious choice, number 7 ranked Darren Till. I mean, it's kind of the fight that everybody's been wanting to see. The fans want to see it. The problem is Darren Till can't keep healthy to get that win because the damn guy's 1 win away, essentially, from getting the title shot. And I'm not saying he would just go out there and starch Izzy. It would likely be a very slow-paced, strategic striking match, but that gives him the chance to potentially outpoint Izzy. I know not many people will ever be able to do that, but if there is someone that can at least match the pacing and the output of Izzy in the feet, it probably would be a guy like Darren Till. That's kind of really the only other choice. He's literally beaten everybody else, and I look at the list of names, I'm like, can any of them do it? Again, Robert Whittaker excluded, but Darren Till, I just want to see that fight one day. That's one of the reasons I say it too. It would be fun and just interesting to see how their striking matches up with one another.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to throw out a different name because Marvin Vettori just got 50-45.
Yeah.
Maybe a Jack Hermanson, a submission specialist, a guy who can even be a little bit quicker on the submissions and things like that. He's a little faster than Vettori, but again, not going to have quite the strength to hold down Adesanya.
Right.
Not going to have the power in his punches, and he's arguably a lesser puncher than Vettori is.
Right.
So, still, I don't think it's enough, but he could totally catch Adesanya in like a heel hook or something.
Yeah.
That would be kind of the route there. So, I like that one now. Number 4, and I think I didn't realize this, but we're gonna have pretty stark difference of opinion here. Did the Arizona crowd at UFC 263 make you miss fights without fans?
Now, to answer the question directly, this specific event didn't make me miss fights without fans. We were big in a kind of a hot take. We like the fights without the fans. We said that a long time ago. However, since we've had 3 events now with fans, it's so nice to hear the roar of the crowd and just see the interactions, people getting put on camera. So we still get fights without fans in the Apex, so we're kind of getting the best of both worlds. I will say, and this is where we'll differ, what you were talking about. I thought UFC 263, while it wasn't all positive cheering, was like the wildest, loudest, most back to normal fans at a UFC event that we've seen of the 3 so far. So I thought that was kind of unique. You heard the boos, you heard the cheers, everything in between. We've been a part of some of them weird chants, the woos and all that stuff. A little bit of everything was going on. So I thought it was pretty fun. And this is where we'll differ. So I'll let you take over here.
Yeah, I loved the first 2 pay-per-view crowds since we've been back. I thought they were fantastic. I thought they went nuts for, like, I thought UFC 2. What's funny is I watched this on a pretty loud volume, and I didn't notice the crowd being any more, in my opinion, any more, I guess,
crazy than
like UFC 261, where, like, when Rose knocked out Weili, and then Masvidal getting knocked out by Usman, like, I felt like those reactions were just insane.
Yeah,
and UFC 262 was a bit more tame, but still good. And, Oliveira picking up a huge win over Chandler. People went crazy. This one, though, I hated this crowd. This crowd completely made me miss fights without fans, because anytime there was even a hint, a glimpse of grappling, these people booed them out of the building.
Okay.
And I cannot stand that. Yeah. I get it. I get it. A lot of times the striking's going to be more fun. And if there's a firefight going on and a guy goes for a takedown, you just kind of takes a little bit of kind of sucks you out of the moment, because you're like, oh, this was such a good fight. Why are you? Don't do that. Like, it's going to slow it down.
Right.
But yeah, I will never respect a crowd that'll boo these fighters that are just trying to win. Like, they're that's all they're trying to do. I get it. You're spending your hard-earned money to come to this show. Well, if you don't like it, stay the fuck home like we do. I was so just disgusted with this crowd. I
saw a lot of people talking about it on Twitter too, like making fun of it, like memes, like anytime the crowd goes down and there's, oh, you're gonna make me boo, and I don't want to get too vulgar on this podcast, but you know which one I'm talking about.
It's and I'm not gonna pretend like it was all bad. I mean, he fights like the Dober Rydell one and stuff like that. You're right. I mean, they were going nuts.
That last minute of Nate and Leon, that was crazy.
The Craig Jamal Hill arm break, they were going nuts for. But it's just,
I get what you're saying. Though.
It just wasn't. They weren't my crowd. Like, I get very easily, like, I feel for the fighters. Yeah. When I see this stuff happen, and a lot of people would just be like, ignore it. And that's what I should do, but I just, I can't. My heart hurts for those fighters when I see them just being booed out of the building for simply using an aspect of their skill.
Of MMA,
That's why, and that's why one of the reasons why I enjoyed fights without fans. Sure, those huge fights where, when Rose knocked out Weili, when Usman knocked out Masvidal, those moments, you want those in these big arenas. But, it's kind of like you weigh into positives and negatives.
There's pros and cons.
Yeah. Number 5. Which current Bellator champion has the best chance of beating the respective UFC title holder?
Well, I feel like it might be an obvious one. And that's just because the damn guy holds 2 belts in 2 divisions. So he's got more for pickings. Patricio Pitbull, I mean, man, this guy's an absolute stud. It's hard to argue he couldn't come into the UFC right now and compete for a belt. What we've seen of this guy, put on absolute clinics, beat guys like Michael Chandler, a belt holder in 2 divisions. And when you look at the matchups with the current UFC champs, at 145, he would go up against a guy in Volkanovski. Very similar builds. Both super well-rounded guys. Very stylistic, fun fight if those 2 matched up. If he goes up to 155, he's got a guy in Charles Oliveira. 2 great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, but 2 guys that are good on the feet. Oliveira, long and rangy. Pitbull, short and stocky with the power. Honestly, he's got 2 good matchups at both divisions, and it helps when you have 2, so you got a better chance to come over to the UFC, more pickings. So maybe that's the more obvious choice. But let's be honest, he's their most dominant champion right now, so I got to go with Patricio Pitbull.
Yeah, there's two others that I could think of. Vadim Nemkov as the light
That
heavyweight
was the
champion.
one I sat on and almost said.
I think, though, Jan Blachowicz is just showing how good he really is right now. And to me, I just don't know if I really see that happening. Here's an interesting one.
Okay.
Because we never got to see this fight ran back. And for all I know, it wouldn't have went any different. What about Chris Cyborg? In a rematch with Amanda Nunes, a lot of people look at that first fight and they just see Chris Cyborg got starched in 40-some seconds. And you know what? You're right. But she landed some hard shots in those 40 seconds. And I'd just be interested to see how the second fight with those two would go.
Yeah, and I know it's different level of competition right now and what we've seen Cyborg do since she came to Bellator. But she looks like a more complete fighter. She's doing things we never really saw. She would usually just come in, starch people on the feet, and that'd be it. But she's improved a ton in her grappling, in her jiu-jitsu. She secured her first submission victory in Bellator in her title defense. So I know, again, the competition's less, so she can show off more, quote-unquote, whatever. But I still feel like she's getting better, and she could still compete with Amanda. My light is spazzing out. There we go. I think it could be competitive, but the problem is Amanda has only gotten better since that fight too, and she's just so damn good. I couldn't quite say Cyborg, although it crossed my mind. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I guess if I really think about it, and this isn't going to be maybe the popular opinion right now, I don't know. I think UFC champions might still sweep it if they ever went head-to-head. Patricio Pitbull's probably the one guy who has a chance, and that could be either division, honestly. I could see him.
Especially now without Habib,
You got Charles Oliveira and then Volkanovski. I almost think he has a better chance at lightweight there than featherweight. But all in all, I think UFC champions might still sweep it, to be honest. That's just maybe a hot take right now.
And odds are we're never going to see it, right? So we can just dream.
Yep. Number 6. Where does Deiveson Figueiredo stack up in a potential move to the men's bantamweight division? I know we talked a little bit about this on Monday's episode, but to elaborate, I see him as a title challenger.
I do too. Yeah.
Those are my expectations for him. He goes up 10 pounds. I don't see it. I know he's going to be he's not going to be a big in the bantamweight division. But his power is still going to hold up at 135 pounds. And his well-rounded skill set, the guy is fantastic everywhere.
Yeah.
He might not have showed in that rematch with Moreno, but you guys, any person who's seen a Deiveson Figueiredo fight before that one knows this guy is an absolute savage. He's fantastic everywhere. Yeah. I think he gives pretty much everybody in that top 10 at bantamweight fits.
Well, I mean, just in terms of where do we think he stacks up? You look at the matchups we think should be next for him on Monday's episode. I said a former champion, number 9 ranked Dominic Cruz, one of the greatest bantamweights of all time. You're going to have to remind me who you said, but I know it was the top 5.
Number 3, Rob Font.
Yeah, I mean, look at what Rom Font's doing right now. So if that answers this question, I mean, where do we think he stacks up? He stacks up and lines up just perfectly to eventually fight for a title up there. He's going to be a lot less fresher. I said this on Monday. I'm going to say it again now. 10 pounds might not seem like enough, but when you're a guy that's cutting weight and you walk around at 165, 135 is going to feel a lot better than 125. I think he does have a relatively bright future and a decently high ceiling at 135 pounds.
Yep, couldn't have said any better myself. Number 7, sticking with this flyweight title fight, we have the winning side here, Brandon Moreno. How long do we see Brandon Moreno holding that flyweight title? And I'm gonna take this one to start because I really do think that if he can get past his first title defense, which it looks like, because let's assume Deiveson goes up 10 pounds, all right? Yep. Let's just assume that Davison's out of the picture. I know that's not
100%
reality right now, but I'm just going to assume that. If Moreno can beat Askar Askarov, who he had a draw with the first time they fought, then I really do think he can be a long-standing champion.
You got to look at how he matches up with all these guys. I mean, Moreno can do it all.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he stacks up well against guys like Pantoja.
Yep.
Royval.
Yep.
I mean, even if that, I mean, you're never going to see Benavidez get another title fight, but
Alex Perez, though.
Perez. There's a lot of guys in there, and even guys on their way up. I mean, Kai Kara France, I think he stacks up well with Bontaran. There's some guys even like that, Raleigh and Paiva, guys like that on the back half. Sue Matarese, that's a guy.
Yeah, you're big on him.
Yep. I'd be interested to see if Matarese can keep stacking some wins up, how that fight would go, because Matarese is pretty big for that flyweight division. So I think Moreno has a good chance to hold this belt for a couple years even. You know, this is the reality. In MMA, it moves so fast.
Yeah.
But it feels so long. Like we just had Deiveson Figueiredo lose his title.
Felt like he was the champ forever. And
he was only he wasn't even champ, I guess maybe a year.
Yeah.
Maybe. Not even a year.
Not even officially. Yeah.
But, I mean, you look at guys like, I was talking about Robbie Lawler earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Only held the belt for close to 2 years.
But you look at what he did in those fights.
Even dominant champions like Kamaru Usman right now is still champion.
Yeah.
He's only held the belt for 2 years.
Yeah. You can be dominant without having these reigns like Anderson Silva and GSP.
It's a different – the sport's just so – it moves so fast, but it feels – every time feels so much longer in the sport. Like, it feels like Usman's been champion for 5 years.
Yeah. The good way to put it really then, can he have a multi-defense title reign? Answer to that, yes. I really think he can. The version of Moreno we just saw fight Deiveson this past Saturday was unbelievable. He beat Figueiredo in every aspect of that fight and controlled that fight for 12 minutes and 26 seconds. His jab was lightning fast. He had power. He dropped Deiveson with a jab, for crying out loud. His wrestling on point. Jiu-jitsu, well, he submitted a black belt. I mean, this guy checks all the boxes. He's only 27 years old. He's only going to keep getting better. He's got a whole nation behind him in Mexico now who damn sure doesn't want to see him lose that belt. This guy has more motivation now than he ever has before. And that's after being picked last on Tough. That's after being cut from the UFC. Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby. Woo-wee. I'm telling you, Noah.
Yeah, your light really liked that one.
My light is going bonkers right now. It's just adding some flavor back here.
But completely agreed. And that's a great way to kind of end on this is that all in all, what they say about when you're winning the title, the real work starts after you win the title, right?
Yeah.
Staying motivated, staying hungry.
You're not a champion.
Challengers. Yeah. You know, the chase for the belt sometimes is easier than holding on to it. So for Moreno, I think he's got a good – you're right. He's got a lot of motivation to still fuel him moving forward as if he needs it. But, I like his chances to hold on to it for a little bit. Number 8. We've talked about this one a lot, but this is one of my favorite topics right now.
You are loving this recently.
I love this topic as just I wouldn't even – man, I don't know. There's just something about this topic that's so interesting because I never thought about it before, really, these two guys.
Yeah.
Name a few fighters who have a chance of being the next Charles Oliveira or Jan Blachowicz.
And explain that a little.
As in guys who right now, today, are not being looked at as title challengers or obviously they've never held a title. They're still on the come up. But a year or so from now, they could be champion. It's that is a lot to grow that much in a year.
Oh, yeah, it's hard to do, man.
I believe when we've talked about this previously, I said a guy like Vicente Luque, but now I'm just thinking like Luque just might be too far along to even count him. Yeah. He's got a fight with Michael Chiesa booked. That's a news story for Friday, but like if he wins that, he might be right there. And for me, I think it's got to be in my head like more than one fight to really get there. So it's a guy that's going to be grinding over this next year.
Right.
Here's a name that might surprise you.
Okay.
And again, his ranking might be a little too high to even count him in this, but I'm still going to do it. Light heavyweight Magomed Ankalaev.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I think that guy's got a high ceiling. Not the most fan-friendly style, but at the same time, you look at like the fight he had with Jan Blachowicz,
yeah,
just starched him on the feet. But then you see what he does in some of his submission wins, and when he's on the ground, he's the complete package there at light heavyweight.
Well, and you know what I think kind of needs to be taken in consideration when we have a topic like this? Who's the champ in that weight class that we're going to discuss? And that leads me back to light heavyweight. You just mentioned Ankalaev. I'm going with another guy, and this might be kind of obvious, but a guy that's still coming off of a loss, Jimmy Crute. He's one of the biggest prospects in all of the UFC. He's like, 25, 26? He's super young, super talented. He's already got huge wins, and yeah, he just came off of that loss to Anthony Smith. But number one, it's Anthony Smith. Number two, his leg did the stanky leg. He lost the nerves and all that weird stuff. Jimmy Crute's definitely one. But I'm looking through the rankings here now, and here's the only issue. There's a lot of champions here that seem like the type of champions that can really reign for quite some time. I mean, here's kind of one I might throw out. This could be maybe a hot take. What about a guy like RDA at lightweight? Could he ever work his way back to be a two-time champ? He's number 7 right now, one fight into his new, run at that weight class. He beat Paul Felder on short notice. I don't know. He matches up well with a lot of guys, but bad at the same time. He's such an odd matchup.
He matches up better than anybody's going to think he will. But
yeah, man.
Well, I definitely think RDA could. He's not out of it by any means.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out an even crazier name. A guy who is 0-2 in the UFC right now.
Ooh.
Manel Cape at Flyweight.
Yes.
We just talked about Moreno.
Yes.
How he can hold for a long time. I still believe in Manel Cape. Man.
I love that one. That's a great choice.
Start 0-2 right now in the UFC.
In that last one, right? The first fight, his UFC debut, didn't really let anything go.
That was against Pantoja.
Yes, Pantoja looked amazing in that fight. In the second one, looked a little better. Still was hesitant, but started to pick it up. In that round 3, Manel Cape, if we see that guy for a full fight, that guy competes with any of those top 5 flyweights. Undoubtedly.
Rising champion.
Rising champion. Yeah. I mean, they hyped up the guy so much when he came in. That's a great one. A guy that's not even ranked right now. I love that. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yeah. I mean, Sue Mataraji is another one at Flyweight. Flyweight's got some real diamonds in the rough, if you will. I mean, Mataraji is a ranked guy right now. But just like as far as guys that, it's a division that's not it doesn't have a ton of names. Like it's just in general, not a ton of bodies. It's the smallest division.
Yeah.
But there's some guys in there, man, that are really talented and could really do a lot of damage in this division. I mean, I still think Roy Val, he's a lot further along.
Let's throw him into this mix too while we're at it. I mean, and I got one more I actually wanted to say. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, I'm going to go 2 real quick. This one, I get to thinking. I'm looking at the names. So, number 1, women's strawweight, current champion, obviously, Rose Namajunas. Don't forget about my girl, Amanda Hebos, ladies and gentlemen, because she started in the UFC 4-0. Yes, she lost her last one, but that was against Marina Rodriguez in a fight that she dominated the first round in. And look at what Marina's doing right now. Yeah. She's on it. She's looking like she's going to be fighting for a title in 1 or 2 more fights. Right. Amanda Hebos, as well-rounded as they come on the ground, can improve on the feet, but is shown to compete with others in the feet. It's just Marina was a different level, fair to say. And then another one in the women's division, and this goes for 2 weight classes, Tatiana Suarez. Don't forget about her, ladies and gentlemen, because you're not going to find her in them rankings, but she's a top 5 women's fighter in the UFC roster right now. She's coming back with a vengeance this fall. It's supposed to be 125 pounds. I think either weight class, she's fighting for a title within a year of when she returns, undoubtedly.
Man, Tatiana, that's a good one. It might be like one that people go, oh, well, that's obvious, but it's not because she's been
injured. We got to see her.
It's like she's definitely in that you must have forgot type.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right now. She's definitely going to come back with a vengeance, I believe.
100%.
Trying to make sure I don't miss anybody here before we move on.
This could just go and go as we keep thinking.
Giga Chikadze right now.
Yes.
Again, a guy who maybe his recent win over Cub Swanson is kind of overclouding, I guess, the rest of his resume. Not all the time in the most fan-friendly of fights, which people think, well, that doesn't matter, but it does when you're being matchmaked by the UFC brass. They don't. If you're a guy who puts on really fun fights and you keep winning, you're going to get a title shot before a guy who kind of, goes to some boring decisions. Chikadze, despite being the electric striker he is, has some boring decision wins. He'll sit there and kind of play tit for tat for 3 rounds with people. It's just I'm not saying he's a boring fighter or a bad fighter. I'm just saying so far some of his fights have been a little less than spectacular. So that's the only thing that could probably hold him back. But coming off that huge win over Cub Swanson, the Giga kick, excuse me.
Yeah.
It looks like he's about to be pushed along a little bit faster. I remember when we talked about this before, I also threw out Edmund Shabazian. I don't know if I can say that anymore.
He's got some very big holes to work on.
Yeah, agreed.
But he's the youngest on this list. I mean, he's got time to season up. I want to go back to featherweight real quick. Here we go. We're really going now on this one. The UFC veteran, Noah, moved down to 145, Edson Barboza. Hey, man. He never got that title fight at 155. He could even go back to that question from earlier, a guy that never fought for a title. Edson looks really good at 145. If he can keep making that weight. Look at that fight with Burgos.
That might be the best one that we've thrown out.
I think at 145, he can work up those ranks. I really do.
Stick with featherweight for one more.
Let's do it. Come on.
Movsar Evloev.
After the performance we just saw, the only problem for this guy, no one's going to want to fight his ass.
Yep. It's the same with Islam Makhachev. It's just he's going to be stuck there for a while trying to –
undefeated. Oh, man. That dude's a beast.
Trying to claw his way to contention,
Featherweight, it's starting to creep up as like it might take the crown here in another year for the most stacked division in the UFC. Yeah. That division is unreal.
Yeah, the talent in these divisions is crazy, but I digress. That was fun. Fun topic. Number 9. Since we just did a lot of rankings talk right there.
Yeah.
Seems like a fair way to transition here. Our rankings even worth it, Dom, if nobody seems to ever be pleased with them.
That is true, right? No one ever is pleased with the rankings.
I've been hearing a lot of talk today about, the updates came out and everybody's pissed about them.
I enjoy them for clarity. Mm-hmm. I'm just, when you're at any other sport, you see, the Reds are in second place. The Clippers are 4th in the Western Conference, so on and so forth. It's kind of just something like that. Keeps it more of a sport, quote unquote, where I like to see where is this guy stacking up with the rest of the division. The problem is, essentially, the media members put this list together, which isn't a bad thing. The media people follow it just as much as us do, obviously. But I'd prefer if it came more from the UFC in some sort of way or fashion, because you can't necessarily do like standings, like wins and losses. That it don't work that way, obviously, in the UFC. But I don't know if there's just a better way to do it. I like the rankings. I don't like the rankings. I'm just going to sit right in the middle of the fence. I want to keep them for clarity. I don't know. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I'm curious to see what you think on this.
I think a better comparison for UFC rankings than like standings in these other sports is like power rankings.
Yeah.
Which I believe are also put together by members of media or media conglomerates, whatever it is.
Who do these people think are the best and why?
Yeah. So it's a lot of opinion based, and there's really no.
There's no perfect way.
Yeah, there's no like statistical analysis that at least has been uncovered yet to show who is in these divisions, the number 1 guy, number 2, number 3. So I think I like them again, how you said it, for clarity purposes. I like that I see, it just gives me a good picture of kind of where guys are.
You can create paths where they can go,
But I do think there is a lot of room for improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And all in all, if you're going to have rankings, right, you should probably follow them a lot closer than the UFC do.
Yeah. And
even if that means you have to do more, like if the UFC have a fight they really want, but the guy might be ranked just a couple spots too low. I mean, I think there's more room for like having these, I think, big changes in the rankings should be more of a thing.
Yeah.
I swear it seems like a lot of times these rankings move at a snail's pace, and it's like, why is Damian Maia still ranked number 9 at welterweight? Like, did anybody think that Damian Maia was the number 9 welterweight in the world anymore?
Right.
But now, because the UFC kind of refused to keep moving him back, and I don't know if this is the right way to go about this, but I'm just talking aloud here.
Do it.
Aloud. But, like, now Bilal Muhammad gets a win.
Yeah.
So he takes that spot, and it's like, was Bilal Muhammad the number 9 welterweight in the world? I don't think so.
Right.
So if Bilal Muhammad goes up against a guy who's pretty good and wins, then so it's just like it kind of waters it down when you have guys ranked in certain spots who I don't think are really that great. Like Tony Ferguson probably shouldn't have been ranked, number 5 going into that Beneil Dariush fight?
Yeah.
Like, it's obvious by these – I think it shouldn't just be wins and losses.
How they lose, how they win.
Mm-hmm. And just adjust accordingly. Even if Tony dropped to like 5-6 spots after that fight, all he has to do if he beats Dariush and like starches him, comes out, knocks him out, or submits him quickly, he moves forward 5 or 6 spots. It's that simple. I think that you could do just much more drastic changes by event to event.
Right.
It would just keep things a little more fresh.
A little bit more.
This isn't a perfect science either. Like, for all I know, this would be a disaster too, and people would probably still be pissed off about it. Because let's be honest, MMA fans, you're never going to be able to please all of them.
Yeah.
You know, I saw people complaining today about the rankings where the flyweight division, what's her name that got the win on
Lauren Murphy.
Lauren Murphy didn't move up.
Yeah, she's just at 3.
But the 2 people in front of her are Caitlin Chikagian and Andrade. And if I'm being honest, I probably wouldn't put her above those 2.
I mean, Caitlin's off of a win against in a more convincing, I guess, way. And Andrade just lost to the champ. But look what she did to Chikagian. You know what I mean? Yeah,
like
at the end of the day, Lauren's probably fighting for the belt anyway. So what's it even matter if she's number 3?
Yeah. So I think if you're going to – I'm fine with the way they are. I get it. They're not perfect. And I think they should be more served as they're more there for assistance or they're like a supporting document almost.
Yeah.
But they shouldn't be the Bible. They should be just like a guide.
Yeah.
Like, this is kind of how we think things stack up right now. But obviously, Lauren Murphy's going to get a title shot probably. She's number 3.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always be the number 1 person, because then you got, is Lauren Murphy better than Andrade right now? Has she shown that she's better than Andrade right now? I don't think so.
Therefore, she shouldn't pass her,
so
right?
I don't want to see Lauren as number 1 just because that's the fight that makes sense for a title, and you have to put the number 1 contender in the title fight. So, yeah, people like to complain about him a lot, but I mean, unless they're offering solutions, then they're probably just going to complain about him even if they were changed.
Right.
Number 10 is the fact that the Ultimate Fighter returned with essentially no changes disappointing or necessary?
You
want me to take it, or you?
Well, I was just gonna say maybe, because again, this is the return. Been a few years. Are they keeping it simple for the simple fact that it's just a reboot? We're testing the waters. Are people going to watch it? It's on a new program. It's on ESPN Plus. You got to be a subscriber to watch it. How's it going to fare? If it performs really well, maybe next year we spice it up a little bit. We do something different. If it performs poorly, well, we'll just keep doing it the same way because the UFC ultimately loves tough. We've talked about that. So would I, like every Tuesday night when I get on to watch it in the evening, would I prefer to have something else to make it more entertaining to watch? Yeah, of course, we all would. But at the same time, keeping it kind of to the roots kind of feels just organic and not forced. And I don't know. I don't want it to become too like stupid out there reality TV where it seems like maybe something's staged. I don't know. I want to see how this season goes before I can answer it truthfully. So right now, I'll sit right in the middle.
That's what you've been doing a lot today, isn't it?
Yeah, that one, I don't know.
No, I get it. This one's a little bit like, because truthfully, I'm a little disappointed by it, but I don't have a better solution in mind. And I'm one of those people that I don't like to complain about things unless I can offer
something,
a solution. And here, the problem is that I think what it boils down to is I just really like the Contender Series.
I love it so much.
And I know the Contender Series isn't perfect. Really tough is probably a better way to analyze talent long term. But I love the idea of the Contender Series, the job interview, you get one shot kind of thing.
Yep.
And like any changes that I would make to the Ultimate Fighter, I feel like at this point you have that alternative with the Contender Series. The Ultimate Fighter is still worthwhile because at the end of the day, you're getting talent on the show, exposing them to an audience, getting to learn their stories, their personalities, and then ultimately you hopefully will create some stars based on who wins or who competes really well.
Yeah, even people that don't win from there can come on,
Yeah, I mean, Brandon Moreno.
Yeah, exactly.
Was the last ranked guy in his season, and he just won a title. So, I mean, it's not always the winner of the season, right? But I don't really know what I would improve about the Ultimate Fighter to, like, make it more what I guess I was in my head. I kind of put some unfair expectations going into the season that, like, oh, they're going to, like, come out and do something completely different with the show. And it's the same show. It really is. And, I mean, Dana, whenever he's asked this question, he always says the apex, which I don't know. I mean, I guess, but I just don't really see it that way. It's just, maybe I think this all goes down to maybe the Ultimate Fighter I know the UFC love it. Dana loves it. We're probably never going to see it go away completely. But I think as a concept, maybe it's just kind of passed me by.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still keep up with it for the prospects and for the fights that are on there. And I like hearing from our coaches, Ortega and Volkanovski. But all in all, Contender Series is just, I think, a better. And even Dana White looking for a fight.
I love that concept on YouTube.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are.
Well, that feels like a TV show. You know what I mean? When you're watching that more than any of the other ones do.
So yeah, that was a long-winded way of kind of saying necessary, I think, out of the two options. I just think that I don't have much to offer in terms of an alternative. So
Fair enough.
Number 11. We have 3 July main events planned right now. McGregor versus Poirier, Holloway versus Rodriguez, Sandhagen versus Dillashaw. The question is, Dom, which of these 3 will be the best fight?
Okay. Thought process.
Should we start in reverse? Which of these 3 is going to be the worst fight and go from there?
Oh. Let me rant for a second. I need to just throw these thoughts out of my head. Okay. McGregor Poirier, the trilogy, 2 knockouts or 1 knockout apiece. Right? We're in the trilogy. I would love if it goes the same way that Cormier and Stipe did. 2 knockouts in the first 2 fights. Then, to settle it all, a 5-round war. That's what I want of McGregor Poirier. Holloway Rodriguez, after what we just saw from Max, it's hard to say this guy just won't come in and rail Yair, but Yair we haven't seen in quite some time either. And he's been known to put on some great performances. Sandhagen Dillashaw, that's the one to me. I'm going to go Sandhagen Dillashaw. I think that fight, stylistically, we've talked about it for months. It sucks it got delayed, but now it's in the. Have we ever seen 3 straight boom, 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 back-to-back main events like this? This is just beautiful. I'm going to answer Sandhagen Dillashaw. I had to talk about the first 2 before I could give the answer. That fight, to me, is a number 1 contender fight. Really, all of these could potentially be number 1 contender. But damn it, styles make fights, and Sandhagen Dillashaw is the one for me. That's the one.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 of these could be fight of the year.
You can't go wrong at all.
I mean, they're all three fantastic. For me, if I'm a betting man, right, and it's like you have to bet on which is going to be the best fight.
Right.
I would put my money on McGregor Poirier 3. And the reason for that is I look at Holloway Rodriguez and Sandhagen Dillashaw in similar lights. They both should be really good fights, but there's a lot of questions about Yair Rodriguez and TJ Dillashaw as they're both coming back from long layoffs. Rodriguez doing it against the best version of Max Holloway we've ever seen, the hungriest Max Holloway we've ever seen, the most pissed off Max Holloway we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's having to come back after some turmoil kind of in his private life with being suspended by USADA, things like that. TJ Dillashaw popped for EPO 2 years ago.
Not everybody's favorite fighter.
Yeah, over 2 years ago. What kind of fighter is he going to be returning? Is he going to be a shell of his former self? He's not getting any younger. But I hope he comes back and looks spectacular, and that's an awesome fight because TJ Dillashaw is, whether you like it or not, maybe the best bantamweight of all time, if not second.
And he's kind of coming in just like Yair in this one because look at what Sandhagen's doing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I was – Sandhagen is just like everybody. The way he knocked out Frankie Edgar. Outside of Aljamain Sterling, the guy's been flawless.
That loss to Aljo lit a fire in that kid's ass.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick with McGregor Poirier. I do – in my head, I see that third fight. I don't know if it'll be a war, but I could see it going 5 rounds.
Yeah, there's something about it.
It feels a lot like the second Nate Diaz fight to me, which was a war.
Yeah.
And I definitely – both guys I think are kind of be coming in just super motivated. Now people are starting to ask questions about Conor McGregor. His father time caught up. Has the game passed him by?
Yeah.
Which is just going to light a fire under his ass. Dustin Poirier trying to show it's not a fluke. It wasn't just leg kicks. It was a complete performance and really just try to put the nail in the
coffin.
Yeah, that's like, this is my rivalry. Like, this is, my legacy, beating Conor McGregor 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah.
So if I was a betting man, I would put it on that. But any 3 of these, as long as one of these 3 live up, I'll be
That's
happy.
enough for me. Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up for the ones that I found across – across, Reddit, Twitter, YouTube. So, Dominic, we do have one viewer entry, and that's from our good friend Jordan.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go ahead and pull it up?
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. JP's voice message.
Hello, below average Joes. This is Jordan. I just have one quick question. If you can bring in one MMA fighter or personality onto the podcast, who would it be?
Okay. All right, Jordan.
It's a good one to end it on here. One relating to the podcast. I like this question. Thank you, JP, for submitting it. Do you want to go first or should I go first?
You. It's because I wasn't ready. No, I just got a bunch of names I'm rattling through my head, to be honest.
See, this is where I think we're going to differ on this one because we've talked about this a lot behind the scenes. But so it might not, I'm sorry, JP, this might not be the answer you're looking for.
Oh, you're going with this answer. Okay.
But none. And there's a reason for that. The reason, in my opinion, when you have a lot of these people, I don't want to say in our space because we're still trying to figure out what our space is, but you have these guys like Ariel Helwani, Luke Thomas, these guys who interview fighters.
Yeah.
Most of those fighter interviews are kind of a waste of time.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not a knock on the fighters. I get it. It's PR. You want to have good publicity. So you just kind of say the right things and, it's very vanilla interviews, just copy paste, like you said, same answers. No, you don't really find out anything about these guys, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And then even with MMA personalities, it's like I would love to have a conversation with Dana White, but if I had to interview him on this podcast, if I'm being honest, I'm probably going to be pretty positive through the whole thing. I don't think I'm going to challenge him on things like fighter pay and stuff like that. It's not, I'm not knowledgeable enough about some of these topics that people would want me to be knowledgeable about if I'm interviewing this guy.
Right.
And that's fine. There's people that do that. They interview fighters very well. The Schmo, he's a great interviewer. It's just not what I personally want to do. I just don't have any interest, because then there's the problem of, as we grow, hopefully, and let's say we get to a point where we do have some clout, maybe some fighters watch us or whatever. Fighters can get pretty emotional about things they don't like. So you have to, if we have someone on our podcast, it's like this, if we want to continue to have interviews with that person, it's like we always have to talk positively about anything they do. I just don't want to be, I don't want to be fake about anything I do on this podcast. And that's why I'm just going to avoid really having any sort of conversations with most people in the community. If I had to choose a name, though, I would say John Anik. He's a great interviewer. Yeah. Anytime I've watched any of his interviews he's done on other podcasts, he really is insightful and gives really thorough answers. And I think it'd just be interesting to kind of pick his brain. And obviously a big fight fan, so I think it'd be fun to kind of dig deep on that guy's past and everything and kind of his story.
If I could pick one person from the MMA kind of, roster, fighters, commentators, all that, to just sit down and not even interview in a typical interview style, but just sit down and literally just be like a part of the podcast, cut the shit with them, talk the breeze, do a preview with them, something like that. Mr. Irish Dragon Paul Felder. I love this man on commentary. I think he's truly the best of the fighter commentaries. I think he's awesome, and I think he's only going to keep getting better. But an ex-fighter, just recently retired, been in some absolute wars, could go over the struggles of weight cutting that he's had a few times in the past, the struggles of these close split decisions that he's been a part of, and how that can affect him mentally in the fight game, and his family life, his story. He's a guy that I would really want to dig into, talk with, how he has transitioned into this great commentary role. Why is that so motivational? I really love everything about the Irish Dragon and Paul Felder. I know that's probably one that's pretty random. We both kind of gave some random answers here, and we didn't even discuss this prior, but I really enjoy Paul Felder, man, especially in these recent years, recent fights, and now always doing with the UFC. I think he just has such a great mind for the sport. I would love to sit down and pick his brain about all things in the fight game. So I'll go Paul Felder.
I like your way of spinning that into including them in a preview.
Yeah.
Where we
just something
the fight breakdown. I would still stick with John Anik for that one.
Could you imagine doing that with Johnny? Wow.
Yeah, just because he's going to come prepared, and probably even more than we do.
Yeah, right.
And
this man's going to come in with freaking 6 pages of notes and everything.
Yeah. He said he still handwrites his notes, so
he put my nitty gritty to shame.
But hopefully that was good enough answers for you, JP. Appreciate you sending in a question.
Yeah, of course.
If you
want
guys,
more of those. Yeah.
If you guys listening at home would like to be included on a future episode of this segment of the Reddit Roundtable, you too can submit a question by using the link in our link tree. If you go to either of our bios, you see at Diesel14, at @NTBaker_, at BAJ_MMA podcast. If you go there to our link tree, there's a link in there to leave a voice message on our Anchor page, up to 60 seconds. You can ask us as many questions as you want.
Yeah, do a rapid fire on there.
Yeah, and we'll include them in the podcast. We'll give you a shout out. If you would rather submit it and stay,
anonymous,
don't want us to play it, stay anonymous, you can just send it. We'll just
answer
do it how we did the rest of these on here.
Yeah.
But just to put that option out there to people, because I'd like to get to a point. The Reddit Roundtable is kind of a name, but really I just want to be able to answer questions.
A conversation piece.
Yeah, answer a lot of topical questions or just fun questions in this kind of open space. And right now, Reddit's kind of the way to find a lot of those, but hopefully down the line, it'll just be viewer questions. And
right, exactly. As this community builds.
Q&A kind of thing. So
right.
that was just kind of a peek behind the curtains of kind of what we're trying to do here. But all in all, thank you guys for tuning in for today's episode, today's edition of the Reddit Roundtable. And Dominic, well, I guess I'll start with Friday.
Friday, don't forget.
Big fight.
Ooh.
Korean Zombie, Dan Ige, 50K.
Woo.
Going to be a really violent and fun headliner, I do
Someone's
believe.
going home with 50K, I'll tell you that.
So that's going to be happening on Friday. And then obviously Monday, we will give the results and recap of those fights that we will preview on Friday. Until then, though, Dominic, tell the good people where they can find you on social media.
As Noah already mentioned, find me on Twitter, Instagram, at DSlee14. More importantly, find the podcast on Twitter and Instagram, at BAJ_MMA podcast. On there, you can find all the links that Noah's going to talk about. But yeah, if you want to leave voice messages, and it doesn't have to be just the Wednesday roundtables or whatever. If you want to preview a fight for us, give your prediction, recap what you think's next, anything, leave a voice message. We'll find a way to feature you, so long as you're not, getting too rowdy and crazy. But Noah, take us out.
Yeah, good way to say you can be in any episode, not just these.
Yeah.
But as for me, you see it right there, or if you're listening, if you go to my Twitter or Instagram, it's at ntbaker_.
Don't forget the underscore.
Yeah, don't forget that. On there is, on my bio, there is a link to our link tree. Gives you the links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with the Below Average Joe's social media platforms. So like the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcast. All those links are on there. There's a couple links for our Anchor page. Leaving a voice message is on there. And if you want to donate to the podcast, there's a link on there for that as well. You can find all that at my bio at ntbaker_
A lot
on
of
Twitter,
ads.
Instagram. Yeah. But that's it. We're out. We'll see you all on Friday.